Namaskar. Today we will study immunity. Immunity is the defense mechanism of our body. It is the overall defense mechanism of an individual organism against any invading agent or pathogen. So, any invading agent or pathogen we call it as antigen, which is the cause of a disease. In response to antigen, our body produces antibodies. So, if the antibodies can eliminate the antigen, then our body will be free from the disease. So, there is a fight between the antigen and the antibody. If the antigen wins, there is disease. If the antibody wins, we are free from the disease. So, antigen is foreign to our body. It is an infectious agent or invading agent or a pathogen, and antibodies are produced by our body in response to the antigen. So, antigen, a foreign substance, when introduced into the body, our body produces antibodies. And the study of immunity is called immunology. So, immunology is the study of immunity. So, immunity can be divided into innate immunity or adaptive immunity. Innate immunity or natural immunity we call it, and adaptive or acquired immunity. So, immunity can be either natural or innate immunity or acquired or adaptive immunity. So, the innate immunity or natural immunity can occur at the individual level. For example, some individuals are resistant to cold and skin infections, whereas some individuals are very much prone to cold and skin infections. Similarly, at the species level, typhoid occurs in human beings, whereas typhoid does not occur in mice. Similarly, it can be racial. The yellow fever, these Negroes are resistant to yellow fever, whereas in whites there is yellow fever. So, this is called natural immunity. Then acquired immunity, this acquired immunity can be either naturally acquired or artificially acquired. Naturally acquired again can be active or passive. Similarly, artificially acquired can also be active or passive. So, whenever we have an infection, we develop immunity that is naturally acquired, and because of the infection, there is we call it as active. That means our immune system is activated because of the infection. So, infection again, clinical infection or subclinical infection. Subclinical infection means infection without symptoms. That means suppose in our family one person suffers, we all are staying together. So, others are infected but with subclinical infection, because that means they are not showing the symptoms even if they are infected. So, the symptoms are not there, so we call it a subclinical infection. So, whether it is clinical infection or subclinical infection, we develop acquired immunity naturally. So, it is called active natural acquired immunity. So, for example, someone suffers from polio and one leg is affected, then for the whole life he is immune. So, polio virus cannot infect the same person again. So, that is naturally acquired immunity. Then passive immunity, from mother to fetus, the antibodies are transferred, and in case of active immunity, actually there is role of antigen, whereas in passive immunity there is role of antibodies. Antigen in case of active immunity, because antigen will come and they will develop, so there will be some action, antigen will develop the production of antibodies. So, naturally acquired in case of clinical and subclinical infection, whereas when the direct antibodies are transferred, we call it as passive immunity, and passive naturally acquired from mother to fetus. So that the fetus is safe up to 6 months old because of the antibodies of its mother. And from the antibodies for diseases like chickenpox, measles, they are transferred from mother to fetus, and the fetus is safe up to 6 months old. So the vaccination program is there, so that after 6 months the child can develop his immunity, and for that we administer actually vaccines, and vaccines are nothing but the forms of antigen, and these they can be your bacteria or virus. They can be either live attenuated or killed. So live attenuated forms of vaccines, we call them as toxoids, and killed forms are in the form of suspensions of microorganisms. So these vaccines, when they are administered, the child develops, or our body develops antibodies against these antigens, so that when in actual the disease causing agent enters our body is prepared with the antibodies, and it can recognize the antigen and can immediately develop the antibodies or produce the antibodies to act against those antigens. So this is active immunity, and we develop this active immunity by administering vaccines, so it is artificially acquired immunity. And if we directly give antibodies against a specific disease, we call it as passive immunity. And again, since we give the antibodies developed from some other animal, for example horse, so to horse antigens are administered, and the horse develops antibodies, and we collect the serum from the horse containing the antibody, and we prepare those antibody preparations called sera or anti-sera or immune sera. So all these are different nomenclature, but the thing is same. For example, anti-rabies sera, that means the sera containing anti-rabies antibodies, so we can also call them as anti-sera. Anti-sera, same thing. So this provides passive immunity because direct antibodies are given against a specific disease causing agent. So this is immunity. So immunity can be either developed naturally or it can be acquired, and this acquired can be either naturally acquired or artificially acquired. Acquired can also be active or passive. So active immunity can again be naturally acquired or artificially acquired. Naturally acquired through infections, artificially acquired through vaccines. And passive immunity can be naturally acquired from mother to fetus, and passive immunity can be artificially acquired through preparations of antibodies. Then there are three lines of defense. So in case of any foreign substance, first barrier is the physical barrier or surface barrier, which includes the skin, mucous membrane, the body fluids like tear, saliva, urine, etc. Then if physical or surface barrier is not sufficient, then we have the non-specific response, which includes the vascular events and cellular events. The vascular events include the vasodilatation and increase in vascular permeability, which causes the accumulation of exudate containing some proteolytic enzyme cascades, which act against the foreign substance. Similarly, we have the cellular events, which include the blood cells like neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, then the lymphocytes, monocytes, then other cells, the natural killer cells, dendritic cells. So all these cells can also are the mediators of the immune response. So that is called cellular event. And if the physical barrier is not sufficient, we have non-specific response. If non-specific response, that means in against any foreign substance, this response should be there. And when the non-specific response is insufficient, we develop specific response against a specific antigen. There will be a specific response. So these two, physical or surface barrier and non-specific response together provides us the natural or innate immunity, and specific response provides us the acquired immunity. So in future classes we will discuss about these non-specific response and specific response in detail.